We really wanted to unpack on what's happening in Iran. A lot of things are happening currently, and we do not want to fall into the whole leftist logic of breaking down any problem in this entire world into the binary of oppressor and oppressed. ठीक है, जो हो रहा है अभी वो बहुत ज़्यादा complex है. Definitely the Mad Mullah regime in Iran has been behind all of this, but there are so many actors and so many players that I thought that we need a whiteboard to break the whole situation down. So let me start with some geography first. Iran lies in Persian Gulf, and it's the only country in the Persian Gulf that does not have a US base. Every other country in the Persian Gulf, whether you look at Saudi Arabia, whether you look at Qatar, all of them have a US military base except for Iran. Now, in 2015, Iran came in an agreement with the US government at that point of time that they are not going to cross the nuclear threshold. मतलब वो लोग nuclear bomb नहीं बनाएंगे. This whole agreement was ended in 2018 by Donald Trump. And one of the biggest mistakes, and I have been saying this repeatedly again, that one of the biggest mistakes any country can pursue is to consider US their friend. To be an enemy of United States is dangerous, but to be a friend of United States is deadly. And them not pursuing to build a nuclear bomb and finally not achieving it is their biggest mistake till date. And so what happened is Iran was slapped with a lot of sanctions. And when we say sanctions, they were economic sanctions. Whenever United States and its colonies in European Union slap you with sanctions, they are really effective. Why are they effective? It's because every trade around the world, or most of it, is done in US dollars. And so US having the US dollar as its reserve currency and the reserve currency for the global trade can really hit you where it hurts with its sanctions. Now, the whole idea of the US-Israel nexus, and I'm going to explain where Israel comes into the picture in this whole situation really quickly, was that, these sanctions are going to make the life of the average citizen who was already fed up with the whole authoritative religious regime in Iran very miserable, which is going to strike a natural uprising, and with actors in the West, they're going to do a regime change operation, which is what we are seeing right now. Now, don't get me wrong. The uprising of the people in Iran is genuine, but there are vested interests in everything. Now, here where Israel comes to play. Israel in this entire region, if you look at the map very closely, is the only power that is nuclear capable. Israel still denies it has any nuclear capability, but we all know that, Israel is a nuclear powered country. Israel's biggest enemy at this point of time is Iran, which it considers, along with the United States, as one of the most prominent members, especially in the Persian Gulf, of the whole axis of evil, which includes China and Russia. And an interventionist liberal force in terms of the whole US and Israel axis, combined with the social uprising here in Iran, is a deadly cocktail and a deadly concoction for the Mad Mullah regime in Iran and for Khamenei, which, just an interesting fact, has his parental roots in Lucknow in UP in India, and hence a lot of following among Shias in India. After the fall of Venezuela, when Maduro was captured by the US forces, that Iran is going to be the next. And if you look closely, Iran remains the only revisionist power in West Asia. And it's very important to understand that Iran, the whole strength of Iran currently derives from its religious authoritarian regime, which finds its backers in the Shia populace around the world. But geopolitically speaking, it's a part of the axis of evil, so-called, where it's backed by Russia. But if you look very closely, Russia is currently occupied with its war in Ukraine, so it cannot do much. So Russia goes out of picture. China is too preoccupied with its own issues and the trade war with the United States. Also, the timing of the whole Maduro capture was very important, because at that point of time, the Chinese diplomats were in Caracas meeting with the Venezuelan officials, and US had to make a point to capture Maduro at that point of time to signal that it's the only boss in the Western Hemisphere, which goes back to Monroe ideology, or the Monroe Doctrine, which we are going to speak some other time. So China goes out of picture. You would remember that probably sometime last year, US also bombed and killed Soleimani. So Soleimani was the general of IRGC, which is the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is the core force or the core armed force for the Iranian regime. And killing Soleimani also weakened the 3H. And when I say the 3H, you know, the Iran-backed militias that have been terrorizing the entire world, especially Israel. So the Houthis, which are known for their piracy operations, the Hamas, which has been active in Israel and Palestine, and the Hezbollah, which is another of these militias. So these three have been neutralized to the core, and now they are fighting their own battles and are scattered within the region. The next piece in the puzzle was Syria. If you look very closely, the only sphere of influence Iran as a power has is in Syria. It's because Syrian government at the time of Assad had a Shia leader which was controlling over its majority Sunni population. And once Assad was deposed, not only did Russia find itself surrounded in that region, Iran lost its major backer in the entire West Asia. So if you reduce all of this, so Syria, Russia, China, Soleimani being the general he was, and the Iran's proxies, Iran is now isolated. And there is a very interesting story that I want to narrate to you. Chandragupta Maurya की ये कहानी है कि when Chandragupta Maurya had attacked a kingdom and he was soundly defeated and he was coming back disappointed with his forces, उन्होंने ये देखा कि एक हट में एक बच्चा जो है बार बार प्लेट से खिचड़ी खाने की कोशिश कर रहा था और उस खिचड़ी खाने की कोशिश में बार बार उसका हाथ जल जा रहा था. तो उसकी माँ ये देख रही थी, एक बार उसका हाथ जला, अगली बार उसका मुंह जला, तो उसकी माँ ने आके उसको सर पे धीरे से टपली दी और बोला कि खिचड़ी जो है वो साइड से खाई जाती है क्योंकि वो साइड में ठंडी होगी, बीच में खिचड़ी हमेशा सबसे ज़्यादा गर्म होती है. And this is the lesson that Chandragupta Maurya learned, that in order to defeat an empire, you have to first defeat its allies, weaken it from the outer, outflank it, and then attack the center, then attack the power center, because it will have no one to rely on. And that is what we have seen around the world in geopolitics, and that's what we've seen. So Syria gone, Russia gone, China gone, Iran's proxies gone, Soleimani gone, and Iran suddenly felt extremely vulnerable. The Mad Mullah regime of Khamenei felt extremely vulnerable. This coupled with genuine, and I might add that a lot of people are denying the current protests, saying these are US-backed, Israel-backed liberal protests within Iran. No, the issues that the people of Iran are facing against this authoritarian Islamic regime are very genuine. However, it is being currently leveraged by the Western forces to push its own narrative, to push their own sphere of influence within the West Asia. And so getting back to it, when Iran becomes alone, it becomes vulnerable, and that is when the US bombed the Iranian nuclear facilities, or so did it. And at the same time, when Netanyahu visited Trump in the United States, you would see there was a rise in the whole psyops that was started across the social media. The Mossad agents got activated. A lot of media was circulated in YouTube, in Twitter, on Instagram. A lot of people were suddenly vowing that, Iran needs a change. The old Persian Empire needs to come back. Iran was never Islamic from the front. It was always a Zoroastrian society. It was always a liberal, free, secular society. There were mentions of Cyrus the Great. There were mentions of the Achaemenid Empire. There was mention of Reza Shah Pahlavi, which, by the way, was a US stooge. But anyway, because the West was trying to push its own ideology, West was trying to push its own narrative to gain the sphere of influence in the only center which was still standing in the West Asia, that is Iran. This is the final chapter of the whole Iran saga or the Iran story. The protests going on in Iran right now are genuine to the core. We are not denying the validity of these protests, but there is something very deep and sinister happening at the same time. With the US deep state and Israel involved, there is a question that we need to ask ourselves, that While these genuine protests go on and hundreds and thousands of people are being killed on the streets where there is an internet blackout and an authoritarian regime is cracking down on the rightful voice of the people, Raza Shah, who is the son of the deposed king, after 40 years, who has never set foot in Iran, goes around different news channels giving interviews. The Western media suddenly starts touting him as the next leader for Iran. I mean, believe me or not, like he, just like his father, he is a Western stooge. He is a key. He is the puppet ruler who's going to sit in Tehran so that the Western nations could pursue their interests in the region, just like he did with his father. And let's not forget, a democratically elected leader was deposed by the Western forces, especially with the British and the American help, along with the Israelis, just because he vowed to nationalize the oil of Iran so that it could be used for the benefits of the people. And that is when the Shah of Iran, which was an American stooge, came to power. And now 40 years later, his son, who has never set foot in Iran, who knows nothing about the condition of Iranian people or the Iranian socio-political dynamics in 40 years, because he has never been in the country, is being touted as the next leader. And the psyops is so powerful that around the world the images are being circulated. He has already been crowned as the king of the new Persian Empire that has emerged from the dust of the old rustic authoritarian Islamic rule that has been shading Islam, that has been shading the Persia, the old Achaemenid Empire, the old Zoroastrian spirit for the past 40 years. Now, while the protests go on, we must ask ourselves this question, that in West Asia, if Iran falls, who is next? Pakistan? India? Where will the Israel-US sphere of influence and their conquest and thirst for power will end? While the destiny of Iran lies with its people, it's extremely important, and it's my message for all my Iranians brothers and sisters. Do not let Western interests take control of your destiny. It's your country, it's your people, it's your society and resources. Be in charge. Let no one, and I say no one, take control of them. Be the masters of your own destiny.